border is not open to illegal migration. And our message to those who are coming here illegally, to those who are contemplating coming here illegally into South Texas, is we will send you back.
That was Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson roughly a year ago after we witnessed that huge surge of illegal immigrants and unaccompanied children at our southern border. And while the issue has rarely been seen in the news since then, recent statistics reveal we are still seeing tens of thousands of kids and families pouring across the border. So what actually happens to all of them? What does it mean for the United States? Mark Krikorian is Executive Director of the Center for Immigration Studies. Mark, thanks for joining us tonight.
Glad to be here.
Okay, so we know that a lot of these, if they come across as families, if there are children involved, a lot of times they end up in detention centers while they wait for processing because, as our William LaJeunesse here at Fox reported, that some of these families, 84% of them, when they were allowed to stay free instead of hanging around before their hearings, they didn't never show up. That's a problem. But now the administration has a problem because a federal judge in California has said they can't hold these families in these detention centers only for very short periods of time. So what does that mean? Where do they go?
I mean, they weren't holding that many of them anyway, but the small number of these illegal immigrant families they were holding, basically pending their immigration hearings to make sure they showed up. Like you said, a judge has now said they all have to be let go by next month. Well, what's going to happen is they're going to drop them off at a bus station, and they're just going to go and, with a piece of paper saying, please show up for your hearing on such and such a date. They're going to go join their relatives, and they're never going to be seen again because the overwhelming majority of these illegal immigrant families that are they're coming across in this border surge from Central America into Texas don't show up for their hearings because why would you? I mean, people who show up for immigration hearings are people who have a pretty good expectation that they're going to win. They're going to get some kind of a green card, or they're going to get asylum, or they're somehow or other going to be allowed to stay. If you figure I don't really have that much chance of prevailing in this hearing, why would you show up? Because if you lose, then you get deported. But if you run off and years later the Immigration Service finds you, maybe under some other administration, because this administration won't even look for them, what's the worst that's going to happen to you? You're going to get sent back, just like if you'd showed up for your hearing. So, of course, they're not going to show up for their hearings.
Well, what about Secretary Jay Johnson there said, we want people to know that if you come here, you don't get to stay. That's not how it works. The administration says that it's running ads in other languages in other countries, trying to tell people, don't come here, don't risk sending your kids with coyotes because they're not going to get to stay. But if this is what the reality turns out to be, what's the disincentive for people to get here?
Not much. Those ads, they're on the internet. We've actually published some links and some blogs on them. There's radio ads down there, other kinds of things in Central America. And they say just this: if you are caught at the border, you will be immediately deported. It's hilarious because people may be listening to this on the radio. You're somebody in Honduras, but then you get a call from your, your neighbor or brother-in-law, whatever it is, who's in the Washington, D.C. area and, came through. And he says, well, they just let us go with a piece of paper, and we're just going to ignore the paper, and nobody's looking for us anyway. So which are you going to believe if you're a person in Honduras considering, should I move illegally to the United States? Are you going to listen to the U.S. government ads, or are you going to listen to your own relatives and neighbors who told you that the ads are baloney? What the conclusion people are going to draw is that, oh, wow, look, the American government is just as dishonest and full of it as our government is, so I'm just going to go ahead and give it a try.
And Mark, real quickly, because we're almost out of time, but I want to ask you, the federal judge talked about the conditions in which these kids were being held. Said they don't fit with a court order from, 15 years ago that said they have to have certain conditions. It can't be like these kids are in prison, that kind of thing. Any compassion to that argument by the judge?
Well, if the conditions need to be improved because they're really intolerable, I'm happy to consider that. Look, we got to do what we got to do. But the idea that if you come with a child, you are basically home free and let go is outrageous. And in the long run, it's harmful because it will lead to trafficking, to people pretending that this is their kid just to use them for illegal immigration. It's easy to kind of wring your hands and emote, but you have to consider the long-term consequences of these kind of decisions.
It is very complex on so many levels. Mark, great to see you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Our new reaction tonight to the debate over birthright citizenship and the 14th Amendment. Does it really mean the children of illegal immigrants are automatically U.S. citizens? Former Justice Department Attorney J. Christian Adams is here. Plus,
I'll use the word anchor baby. Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby.
Governor, is that not bombastic language, anchor baby? Is that not bombastic language?
No, it isn't. Give me another word.
Alan Combs and Chris Salcedo weigh in on the controversial term anchor baby and its use on the campaign trail.